for another Sunday school lesson. I don't know about you, but I've been enjoying this quarter's lesson so far. Of course, we're just on lesson 4. I have been enjoying them. I've done my best not to try not to make this lesson so much of a science lesson as last one was. There's certainly opportunity for us to make this a science lesson, but I've tried to refrain this time. Of course, as Sister Wendy said just a minute ago, we're talking about seeds and it's yielding fruit. This morning's lesson, and just go ahead and get right into the lesson. It would be negligent of us to overlook the importance of God bringing forth seed upon the earth. Why is this important? Could you imagine the earth without grass or trees? What about not seeing the beauty of flowers or plant life? Most importantly, what about our food source? Much of the foods we eat come from the seeds which God placed upon the earth. As Sister Wendy said, it's not necessarily so that all the food we eat is seeds or comes from seeds, but as a result of seeds, the things that we eat have come to be. We may not eat a lot of grains ourselves, but if we eat meat of any kind, that meat was dependent on seeds. I can't think of any land-based animal that we normally eat that does not get its food, its main source of nutrition, from some form of plant life. And almost all of the plant life that's used for food comes from seeds. So seeds are very important as far as our eating habits and our continuing life on this planet. I'm not a vegetarian. When you spoke about vegetarians earlier, eating mostly seed-based life, but some of my favorite foods are seeds. If you like nuts, you like seeds. If you like fruit, well, it's not necessarily a seed, but that's the house for a seed. If you like beans, those are seeds. If you like sunflower seeds, it tells you in the name. That's a seed. There's so many things. Rice is seeds. I'll go into that a little bit farther on. But there are so many different things that we eat that are seeds or based on seeds. Vegetables all come from seeds. When one dives into the study of the seed and its yielding properties, it is beyond comprehension to consider the immense orchestration behind this. To give us a more modern-day understanding of the quantity of species of seeds, consider these facts. There is a Doomsday Vault located in Norway, which opened in February of 2008. The vault houses more than 860,000 different seed samples from around the world, and it continues to receive more samples annually. As I was looking at this, actually as we were working on this Sunday school lesson, I had to update these numbers, because when the author wrote this, and when we were actually working on producing it, the numbers went up significantly. So I went ahead and changed it before we actually printed the Sunday school literature, because 860,000 was quite a bit more than what it was when the author had actually written this lesson. As a matter of fact, I decided to check it out just last night, just to make sure I have the most recent numbers. And right now, last night, there were 864,309 varieties of seeds in this vault. And of course, it's interesting to note that this particular vault is designed to hold up to 4.5 million varieties of seeds. And that's a lot of variety. That's a lot of seeds. It certainly has a lot of room to grow. Its purpose is to collect as many samples as possible in case of a worldwide catastrophe, so they may be used to replenish the earth. It's a backup, so to speak, a backup copy of all the seeds that are used around the world. The number of seed varieties is staggering. As I was looking at this, I was trying to figure, well, how many types of seed are there in the world? Well, I wasn't able to find a good solid number anywhere. But what I did find was rice. Rice is a type of grass. I don't know if anybody knew that rice was grass, but rice is a type of grass. Turns out that just the cultivated rice that we eat, the rice that farmers grow specifically as a food crop, there are 40,000 varieties of rice, cultivated rice, across the globe, around the world. There are 40,000 varieties of rice. Wow, that sounds like a vast, huge number, but that all of those 40,000, that represents one species of rice. That's not 40,000 different species of rice. That's 40,000 varieties of a single species of rice. Now, how many species of rice are there? I don't know. But the numbers are absolutely positively staggering. That one species of rice, it has the same name. It's not like it has different names. It's Oryza sativa. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But it's a single species of rice. I can't emphasize that enough. One species of rice, 40,000 varieties. That's one species, one type of seed, 40,000 varieties. And how many other things? We don't even think about some of the things that have seeds we may eat every day. Cucumbers have seeds. Carrots. Have you ever seen a carrot seed? They got to be kind of small because you eat them every day, you eat a carrot. You never even see them. Most times don't even think about it. Tomatoes have seeds. So many different things that we eat have seeds in them and we just eat them. Peppers have seeds and we just eat the seeds. Of course, those pepper seeds are kind of hot. But all of these seeds are necessary for our life. They're necessary for the variety that we have in the food. It would be a very sad thing if all we had to eat was rice and only one type of rice. But if we chose to eat a different kind of rice every day, we'd have a long wait till we got to the end of all the varieties of rice that are farmed across the world. The golden truth, Psalms 104 and 14, He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth. And once again, He causeth the grass to grow from seed. All the grass that we have comes from seed, including the rice that we didn't even know was grass. It's all about seed. And this verse even brings out the fact that He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle. And of course, when the Bible talks about cattle, it's basically speaking about anything that people raise for food that's an animal. You include cows and sheep and goats and anything like that. So all of these things are totally dependent on seeds for life, as are we, secondarily, by eating these things. We have to understand the importance of these seeds and recognize the beauty of creation and how it is that God chose to bring these things into being. Lesson exposition part 1, God brings forth seed. Genesis 1, 11 through 13. And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, an herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. God is a God of order. What should be carefully observed in Genesis chapter 1 is the order and rhythm which God created the earth. When God commanded the grass, the herbs, trees, etc. to come forth, He had already created a perfect environment for them to grow in. The earth or soil was already established. Water was present as well as air. Then the following day, God introduced the proper lighting needed to further its growth. And all of this, before a single plant existed, God had all of this worked out and settled before He created the first tree, before the first seed took root. Anybody who has anything to say, please feel free to interrupt me. I do desire to hear what you have to say on all this as well. Yes?
Well, not only what you're saying shows the awesomeness of God in creation, but I see His love for us
Absolutely.
in all of this. what if every plant tasted the same way? What if it just ain't one? I mean, I love peas, but I won't eat something besides peas.
Amen.
What if every flower looked just alike,
Smells
or
like
every tree?
Yes.
Why are they different? What else could it be but a sign of God's love for us?
And
The
God is
variety.
certainly merciful to us in allowing us the beauty of this world. Of course, science will tell us that over millions of years these things diverged and changed and such like. But we know that it's only by God's mercy and grace that He prepared this world for us. Before He created us, He set things in order in such a way that it would be just right to support us as humans. He prepared all of these things as a way to, well, get the world ready for us. He knew what was coming next. He knew it wasn't like He said, okay, well, I'm going to make dirt. Okay, let's make dirt. I wonder what would grow in dirt. He didn't have to think about it. He already knew the plan. He already had an understanding of what He was going to do next. So that's why when we see the order of the things that were created in the order that they were, it's very obvious that, okay, He didn't create the plants first and have them float in nothing until He waited and, okay, well, I'll do the plants today, I'm going to do the dirt tomorrow. It all worked. He knew what was going on. He had a plan. It worked out in such a way. He worked it out in such a way that it was very clear that things worked in a progression, and not an evolution, but in a progression of necessity. The very first thing that's necessary to have life on earth is to have earth. You can't have life on earth if you don't have earth to have life on. So therefore, the very first thing that was created was earth. Then He created the environment that was going to be necessary for the creation of the next thing on His list of things that He had planned to create. And so as we go through this process, we see the order that God worked in preparing things, so that what He created on day 2 was perfect to support what He was going to create on day 3, and what He created on day 3 supported what He created on day 4, and so forth. It's also important to note that God gave the seed reproductive capabilities. Above, the author noted that God does things in an orderly way. Reproduction of plants is amazing. Once again, I'm not going to go into a science lesson here, but some of the same terminology, zygotes, embryos, all of these things that we think of as animal life, reproduction, they're utilized in a very similar way when we talk about plant reproduction. All of these things work out together. It seems to me anyway that when God did these things, He created all life from that source. Him, He is the source of life. When I see an animal and I look at that animal's front leg and it looks like an elbow, and I see its back leg and it looks like a knee, I don't say, oh, well, I must have evolved from that thing because my parts look similar to that thing's parts. I say, no. What I see is the supreme being who designed me also designed that cat or that cow or that bird or whatever it is. And so our skeletal functions, our skeletal appearances are similar, not because we derive from one another, but because all life has a single source in God. Many plants rely on insects or animals for pollination. According to scientists, over millions of years, these plants evolved to require such pollination. This is me thinking, I sometimes think outside the box. If a plant had to wait millions of years, because plants came first, science will tell you plants came first. If these plants had to wait millions of years for a creature to evolve to pollinate them, my guess is they're going to die out before they reproduce. And once again, this is just me thinking. I could be really off base on this, but it seems reasonable to me to think that these work in the beginning. This isn't something that had to figure out how, the plant's not going to sit there and think, you know, I don't want to die. I want to continue my species. How can I go about doing that? I need to figure out a way to pass some information on to my, how can I pass information on if I can't reproduce myself? How do I do that? I need to figure this out quickly. The plant doesn't have thought process. The plant doesn't have the opportunity to think, okay, well, how am I going to reproduce myself? Over millions of years, millions of years, you're talking about how do you reproduce? You can't reproduce if you don't know how to do it when you're here. If you can't do it while you're here, you're not going to have it to pass on to the next generation because there won't be a next generation. These things these living things have to be able to reproduce as soon as they're formed. It's not something that we can just wait and think about and figure out over millions of years. It has to work immediately. It's something that's required to pass on that genetic information. It's something that we have to be able to do, whether we're a plant or a cat or a person. It's something that if we desire to continue our species, we have to be able to do it. We have to be able to do it from birth. It has to be something that functions within us. It's not something that we can evolve into. Just like animals, if evolution is an ongoing process, why do we not have intermediate species today? Say something between a pine tree and an oak. Something because, I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure how evolutionists say trees evolve. I'm a little bit more familiar with the evolution of life in a more animated sense than trees. But why aren't there some species that are different from things that were in the past that are evolving? If evolution is a process, if evolution is something that science says is a fact, it should be reproducible. It should be something that we can witness. Part of the scientific method is observation. If you can't observe it, it can't be true. If you can't reproduce it, it can't be true. That's part of the scientific method, and I could be wrong on that. But I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. It's got to be observable and reproducible. The effects that you're stating as a theory have to be reproducible and observable. And evolution is not observable. We can't see it. We can't see it taking place. We don't see, like we talked about with the animals, I don't know exactly how it came about, but we're talking about the animals and how birds don't just hatch dinosaurs, and dinosaurs don't just hatch birds, and cows just don't give birth to puppies. It just doesn't work. It never has. And it's the same with trees. If you plant an acorn, you're not going to get a pine. It's never going to happen. It's something that can't happen. It's never been observed to happen. So therefore, it's an impossibility. We don't see those things that are halfway in between two different things. I mean, certainly science has done some genetic altering and caused, I've seen advertised somewhere, a tomato plant whose roots were potatoes. And they're closely enough related that science has figured out a way to genetically modify these plants, and I don't care. That's fine. That's something that science has done. That's a Frankenstein plant. That's not something that science created from scratch. That's something that science took something that God had already created and manipulated it. That's not creating something from nothing. That's not a plant on its own deciding, hey, you know, I could be a lot more efficient if my roots were potatoes. I could feed a lot more people. If a plant just up and decided to do that one day, I might change my mind about evolution. But I haven't seen it happen. And in the history of the earth, I don't think anyone else has seen it happen. If they had, I feel confident that it would be recorded somewhere. How about a plant that resembles a fern beginning to produce flowers? Science will tell us that ferns are the oldest of plants. They're the most unevolved of plants because they don't have flowers. And they don't reproduce the same way as other plants do. But why is it that we still have ferns today? And why is it that those ferns that we have are the same in the fossil record that they are today? Science will point out fossils that they found that they'll say are millions of years old of ferns. And you go down to Walmart and you can buy that same fern that they've got a fossil of. Why is this so? Why haven't these ferns evolved? Why aren't they currently evolving into something different? Why aren't they currently changing? Over the millions of years, you would think that something would have happened, that we'd be able to see that change had taken place if evolution were a fact. Yet we see so many plants in the fossil record that are exactly the same today as they were according to scientists millions of years ago. Yes?
You know, that's the reason I love to watch flowers grow. I call them beauty of God.
Absolutely.
He growed them. But I like to see the different types and different flowers. And then I put them all together in one, and I said, that's God's bouquet. The bouquet someday we may see in heaven. And that's the reason I love flowers. Because God created them in God earth. So that earth God created is of Him. So it's the beauty of God.
Absolutely. Praise the Lord for the beauty that we are able to see that He's given us to behold every day. We can step out. We may not enjoy the pollen, which is part of this whole reproductive process of the plants, but He's given us beauty. Every rose has its thorns, so to speak, and pollen is definitely one of those. Yes.
The fact that they're using or have been using so much pesticides on plants has killed a lot of the honeybees. And so it's kind of an emergency situation where they're trying to keep people from killing the honeybees, and so they'll propagate because they are essential to the pollination of plants. And there's the big farms out in California, they have suffered because, and they're importing honeybees to be able to pollinate their plants.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's just something I've noticed, I've observed recently. I love taking pictures of bees. I like taking pictures of bugs, and I like taking pictures of flowers, and bees just bring the two together. So I really enjoy that. And this year, I've not seen a single honeybee. I've not seen one. I've heard about them, but I've not seen any bees, and it's definitely disturbing. You're talking about the shortage of honeybees. I actually read an article, and it was a very interesting article, nothing to do with this lesson, just in my reading in the past. And it was about this very fact that there were honeybees that were missing from this one particular area, and this orchard was dying out, and they didn't know what they were going to do because they were so desperate to have some kind of pollination going on. So they actually hired people and gave them little cups of pollen, and they went around and literally climbed around in these trees with paintbrushes and pollen and went painting the flowers from tree to tree. Well, come to find out that they were much more efficient with their pollination than the bees were. They produced a tremendous harvest every time that they had these people to pollinate by brush. They had a much more efficient, because the bees, they look for specific flowers, but the people, they just pollinated everything. They were just brushing that pollen on everything they saw. So they ended up with a much greater harvest. But as things went on, these people, they realized how important they were. And they said, well, we're important. We need raise. And so they had to start giving the people raises. And so it turns out that even though the bees were not as efficient, they did a much better job because they didn't require support beyond that. So what ended up happening with these orchards, they were able to keep going until the bee population was such that they were able to do the things that they needed to do. costing them more money because they had to pay the people more to pollinate these trees by hand. So they didn't end up making any more money, even though they had a much more tremendous harvest, because they had every bit of the money that they had went back into the people who were hand pollinating all these flowers. So yes, bees are important, yes.
Nowadays, if you have honeybees in your house, I know several people that have tried to call exterminators saying, come kill these bees. I don't want them in my house. I don't want them in my attic and all that. And of course, all of them refuse to kill them because of the low bee population. And so a friend of mine, he is one of these that'll go out and get honeybees. And he gets excited when he can get some. And a while back, my parents' neighbor had a bee problem, and he went and got those. And of course, when you get the queen and you put them all in, they automatically all go and follow the queen. When you bring the hive out, it's just amazing to hear how he describes this. And this is all God's creation. I mean, they can't really talk to each other. I mean, they kind of can, but I mean, they can't really verbally talk like we can. But God allows him to do these things. And he had said that he got all of them out. And basically, when he knocked some of them in, they all started. He said within a few hours, they were all in his box, basically ready to go, because the queen was in there, the hive was in there, the honeycomb was in there. They were just about ready to go. And he said there's a couple of stragglers, but most of them. So he took them home. He says he has to do regular maintenance once a week to make sure there's only one queen there. If another one's being born, he has to get rid of that, because he said when you do that, then if there's another queen born, she takes half the hive with her. So then you don't know where that hive is. Somebody might kill it or whatever. So he said you had to be very careful. And thankfully, my mom works at the Agricultural Extension Service, and she had his number because somebody else called. Same problem. They won't kill my bees. I've got to get these bees killed. And of course, thankfully, the exterminators can't kill the bees, and he was able to go get her bees too and get them out and keep these hives going and making new hives at different places so that he can keep the bee population going. But just hearing it and seeing it and hearing him talk about it, it's just amazing to hear. You know, God created these things, and most people run from them or whatever and afraid they're going to get stung, but they really help. And I hate pollens. I like honey though, but but I hate pollen and everything around concerning pollen, but bees are very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of off subject, but it just struck me as interesting just thinking about the wonder of God's creation. The first mess of bees that he pulled out of these people's attic. I don't know if you've ever had a bee land on you, but they're pretty light. I can't imagine how much they weigh. I can't imagine they weigh more than a fraction of a gram. But he said that this first bunch of bees that he got out of one of his parents' neighbor's house, he had 20 pounds of bees. Then he went on to tell us it takes 10,000 bees to make, it takes 1,000 bees to make a pound. Well, that gives you an idea how much they weigh. He had 20,000 bees, so he had 20 pounds of bees. That's a lot of bees. Yeah, we definitely need bees. Bees are critical for the reproduction of many different types of flowering plants and fruits and just beautiful flowers. Sister Dotsie was talking about all of these flowers. As far as I know, all of them require pollination of bees for their pollination. Why is this so important? Plant life. I'm sorry. It's also important to note that God gave the seed reproductive capabilities. This means that they would naturally reproduce on their own based on the environmental conditions which He created for them. Why is this important? So that plant life could continue reproducing throughout the earth to supply the necessities for man. What divine intellect. Every individual species of plant life was given the ability to reproduce. That is not mere happenstance, but a very powerful design. Have you ever given thought to the geographical location of all these seeds? Florida is known for oranges. Idaho is known for potatoes. South America produces 30 different types of tropical fruit. While this may sound more like a science geography lesson, we should consider how God designed the world for mankind. The majority of the world is habitable. We have discovered different types of trees, grass, and plant life, which include different vegetables, fruits, nuts, etc., all indigenous to their specific locations. This explains why different countries have different foods and cuisines. To God be the glory for His infinite wisdom. His infinite variety, as Brother Emmons pointed out earlier. And part 2, a God of abundance, Psalms 65, 9 through 13. Thou visitest the earth and waterest it. Thou greatly enrichest it with the river of God, which is full of water. Thou preparest them corn, which thou hast so provided for it. When thou hast so provided for it. Thou waterest the ridges thereof abundantly. Thou settlest the furrows thereof. Thou makest it soft with showers. Thou blessest the springs there, springing thereof. Thou crownest the year with thy goodness, and thy paths drop with fatness. They drop upon the pastures of the wilderness, and the little hills rejoice on every side. The pastures are clothed with flocks. The valleys also are covered over with corn. They shout for joy. They also sing. The psalmist David praised God for His blessings and plenty. David recognized that it was God who had provided the abundance in the earth. Despite this abundance, it is amazing that there are still people starving in the world today from malnutrition. This is unimaginable when you consider the abundance with which God has blessed this world. Listen to this fact. According to a report from the National Resources Defense Council, the average American tosses about 25% of food and beverages purchased. For a family of 4, the money wasted could total between $1,365 and $2,275. It doesn't say, but that's annually. U.S. News and World Report, April 2nd, 2013. According to Census.gov, as of July 4, 2014, the population of the United States was over 316 million. Not everyone is a mathematician by trade, but the truth is, when we put these numbers together, we will find a huge amount of food and money are being wasted every year in the United States alone. I was curious, so I went ahead and figured that out. Come to find out that range on an annual basis is between 431 billion, 340 million, all the way up to 718 billion, 900 million dollars that we waste annually just in the United States on food. And before you get to thinking, hey, if we stop wasting food, we can pay off the national debt. No. Even with that much money being wasted every year in food, it would still take 30 years to pay off the national debt if we could stop it where it is right now. So yeah, that's a lot of money, but it's not that much money. So that is a lot of money that we waste every year just throwing out food. There's not enough time to explore this in great detail, but it's possible that this could be going on in other nations as well. The point to be made is, should anyone be starving in this world when God has blessed the earth with so much? The answer is no. However, man in his fallen state has created the problems that are in the world today. Crime, corrupt governments, and selfishness in the world all affect food growth, price, and distribution. And something that the author didn't go into, but it's very important as we consider seeds. Seeds are big business today. Seeds are a multi-million-dollar business, just in this nation, and certainly around the world. But the majority of seeds, if you go to Walmart and buy a pack of seeds, they're sterile. They've been genetically altered in such a way that if you plant a row of cucumbers and you decide you want to take those cucumbers and plant them when they come up, you want to plant those seeds and grow more cucumbers, they won't produce. The scientists have stripped out that reproductive capability that God has placed in the seeds because these big corporations, they want you coming back to them. They don't want you growing something and then being able to plant it for free the next year. They want you, they want you to come and buy their seeds. But when it comes time to plant next year, they want you to go back to them and buy their seeds. They don't want you to be able to reproduce from the stuff that you already have, that God has created for us to be able to sustain ourselves in this way. So, God gave these things freely for our benefit, but man strips out that portion of God's creation in order to supplement his greed for more. Part 3. I'm sorry, not done there. This does not mean that God's abundance is gone, for it is still there. As Christians, we must ensure that we are being good stewards of the resources given to us by our Creator. Part 3, God loves a cheerful giver. 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 8. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart. So let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things may abound to every good work. James 1:17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Other than when Scripture dictates, such as prophetic fulfillments, God is committed, as seen as in His Word, to taking care of this present earth, through the seed-bearing and reproducing qualities of creation. While it may be that some nations are not as blessed as others in terms of development, the Bible teaches us to give to others as God has given to us. And as I read this, I thought about God freely giving to us. I thought about Matthew 10 and 8. Of course, this is Jesus sending, when he sent out the 12, freely received, freely give. Also, 1 Corinthians 2 and 12, now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of God. Romans 8:32, he that spared not his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Revelations 21 and 6, I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. It is God's will to give us all good things. But first we have to recognize who he is, and then accept his free gifts to us. And certainly he's given us salvation. He's given us church. He's given us spiritual support in the form of our families, our friends, our fellow church members. But he's also given us the plants that support all life on this earth. He's given us everything that we need to survive, not only spiritually but physically. One of the characteristics of being Christian is to have the spirit of giving. This comes from God, as he revealed himself as the ultimate giver. While it is true that Satan has his influence in the world, controlling many things, it should be understood from the Scripture that God will supply the need of everyone who believes and trusts in him. He has admonished us also to have healing hearts toward those who are in need as well. Proverbs 11:24 and 25. There is that scattereth and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself. It was never part of God's plan to give us salvation and all of the other wonderful gifts for us to hoard up for ourselves. Rather, we are to freely give away all that he gives us. When we do, we will find that regardless of how much we try to give God's blessings to others, our blessings will continue to grow. It has been said that you can't outgive God. Well, it is also true that you can't give to others so much that God cannot keep up and not be able to bless you abundantly more. It is his desire that we always be found giving to others all that he has given to us. God is able to distribute his abundance where he deems necessary, regardless of Satan's efforts to limit and restrict its access. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of all mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. Psalms 50, 10, 11. Another way of phrasing this is that while man may govern the nations of the world, and sin may dominate, God still owns everything. He knows how to maneuver the necessities to where they need to go. We have this promise of Christ through the writings of the Apostle Paul. But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory. Philippians 4:19. As James penned, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. Everything from God is good and blessed. While we see so much heartache on this earth, we must not forget that it is the result of sin. And God is, and always will be, a God of plenty. Amen. There are so many things that God has given us in this world. There are so many things that we see around us that God has allowed us to enjoy in this life. Let's not ever fail to give him the glory in all these things. And praise him for his mercy.